Conversation a few times. In my opinion, the two most popular things to do for your business for marketing right now are quite literally free. Because
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, Zoom's like $15 a month, but like you can have a free version if you did episodes under 40 minutes. Everything
right.
else is free, like to
Yeah,
upload it. And then same thing with Instagram Reels. Isn't that
yeah.
crazy?
Well, that and even posting on your Google business profile,
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's all free. I mean, it takes some time to create the content. Maybe you need Canva,
Right, but
or something.
you can get a free version of that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I have been really, which I wanna pick your brain about. I'll edit this stuff out, by the way,
No,
but
you're
now I
fine.
have a recording of it. I would love to pick your brain. I feel like I've been feeling this, like, burnout, which I'm so grateful for the clients I have now, like, love Todd, love Lonnie, love the Hunters, but, like, I'm looking for new clients.
Yeah,
And it's hard out there, man. And I have been feeling more and more passionate about like talking to other digital marketers, really just about how like you can have a pretty great business if you're just trying to make an extra couple $1,000s a month and like
yeah,
support a business in your community, which I think like you can attest to that, depending on where
yeah,
you live. But like you could live in a small town and still have a pretty good business.
yeah,
But
yeah.
those
You
are my
can.
thoughts.
I agree with
How
you completely.
how's the tribe doing over there? How are things
W-
looking?
We're a little rough, not gonna lie. Bishop is home again for the second day.
Oh,
Bo and Bishop were home yesterday. So Brett just like took Bishop out to run some errands, so he wasn't here. But then he's got to hand him off back to me in a little bit so he can go to meetings. So it's a complete juggling act. So I've got two on antibiotics for strep. I've got one on a steroid for potentially croup. I was tested for strep yesterday, negative, but I've got my hot tea and fighting whatever the kids have shared with me. So,
oh my.
we are a kind of a hot mess over here this week.
Do you guys have any holiday plans like this weekend and next week?
Nothing this weekend, but my brother and his family are coming out next week.
Okay. Well,
So,
they're coming to you, so at least you don't have to travel.
yep, yep.
Uh,
So
Bryce,
we're hosting and so it'll be fun. Yeah.
Bryce, your brother?
Yes.
Oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
have
And
so
all,
much fun.
yeah, yeah. So he's bringing his three girls and his wife. And so it's going to balance out the boy, energy in this house a little bit. So excited
Yes.
for that. And then I'll have some girls to go shopping with on Black Friday, which I never get. So
I'm so
pretty
excited for
excited.
you. Are you working up until Thursday or what's your schedule look like next week?
Yeah, we've got childcare coverage Monday, Tuesday. There's no school all week. Yep. I know the kids never go to school. They had
They
Monday
never
off
go to
too. Like
school.
they literally never go to school. And then we've got half day care on Wednesday. So I'm gonna do what I can up to that point. So
Well, take care
yeah,
of yourself.
I know. I'm trying.
Okay, I'm gonna do an intro and record it separate from this so it's not like
Okay.
easy rolling into it. So,
Yeah.
really, I just want to kind of cover, let's like go back and forth and kind of like decide the official direction we want to take it. And then like I'm thinking we just
Okay.
dive into the conversation. And honestly, like I mean, we can go as long as we want, and I can split it up into like two parts if we feel like it kind of goes in a couple different directions, or
Yeah.
we just have to do another one. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
was
good with
looking
that.
at the notes that we were going back and forth the other day,
Yeah.
and obviously I want this to be because you're going to be the second episode that goes out after Annika. And
Okay.
so I think I'm gonna have pretty good like listeners from Annika's podcast just because she's had like a lot of really good press lately. And I
Yeah.
have some really good people on the lineup afterwards. Like, have you ever heard of the brand called Frownies? It's in a
No.
pink box and
Okay.
they are like an adhesive patch that you put on your face at night. And it's like a
Oh, maybe I
The
have.
the grandma invented it or whatever in like the 60s. I have to get like the dates right, but like it's a family
Yeah.
business and they're
I
sold in
need some
like
of that in my life.
yeah, there I'm like, I'll still do the Botox, but I'll put something in my face, like that's fine.
Yeah,
So
I got a touch
anyways,
up just yesterday. So
I okay, so I hadn't gotten Botox for like I got it before we went to Italy because I was like, if I get engaged in Italy, even though I told Freddie not to, I was like, if he does this and I am like not looking good, I'll be so mad at him. So I got
yeah.
Botox in last May and then I just like did not care about it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And then finally last month, like a month ago, I like called this place up here and when I went in there, I was like, listen. I gotta, I gotta get, we got like, just tell me and like, let's make a plan. And
Yeah.
so I'm really excited about it. I just did Botox, just like a little bit, but I
Yeah.
really liked my girl. And I
Good.
was like, I don't know, it looks good. Like, you have to tell me what you think needs to happen.
Right. Exactly. Where what needs to go where?
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm all over the place this morning
Yeah.
only because I'm so excited to
Brownies.
talk to you. Brownies.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be a guest. So
Okay.
that was a big one. I also have a girl named, she's kind of a little rough around the edges, but her Instagram name is Natasha Storm. She's got almost 20,000 followers, but
Oh
she's
wow.
like a professional lead generator. And so she works with like fitness influencers and like I mean, her clients are bringing in like over 50K a month in the like health and wellness business. And she
Nice.
also has a podcast, but she's like starting a new one. And then that Elise girl, the grief good. So just like some good people
Mm-hmm.
along with you, obviously.
Yeah.
So I say that to say personally, when I find a new podcast, I listen to the episode I found and then I like want to go back and listen. So I
Yeah.
want this to be mutually beneficial to the both of us in the
Yeah.
sense of like, I want people to listen to this and be like, I want to, like, I'd love to work with them. Like, they seem like
Yeah.
they know a lot. And I don't think that means we have to like sell a service. I think just like our thoughts on branding and marketing and what's working and what
Yeah.
we're seeing for sure will be something. And then
Yeah.
if it goes there, or if you don't want to talk about it, but like obviously, like I wanted to pull in like any type of thing about grief.
Yeah.
And the way that I thought I could segue into that is I do want to ask you about how you manage multiple business schedules and even just like with the kids being sick. It's like you have to keep track of when you like pump them full of meds. Like, how the fuck do you do that? So
Yeah.
and I wanted to just touch on, a lot of business owners or just women in general make excuses. They're like, oh, I have kids. And I never get that vibe from you, which I love. And so I thought that could kind of be the segue into, your choice of like your work schedule and how we got here. And if you want to talk
Yeah.
about Bella, like adding that in there, I think that could have like a lot of power to it if you want to
Yeah.
go there. If it doesn't
No, I'm fine
feel
with that. Yeah. No,
natural,
I'm pretty much
okay.
an open book.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see what else. Definitely the switching career thing. And I think that kind of segues into like your business and like how we got here. And then from like a strategy standpoint, I want to ask you about just like when you decided to switch your careers, like because you weren't like you knew kind of what you were doing, I think, in the sense of you
Yeah.
really niched down right away about who you were attracting. And so I think that speaks to digital marketers, like growing a business where you're at instead of like I was focusing on places I wanted to go, which was really cool. And you were like, I've got people right in my backyard. So I think that's a cool
Yeah.
difference. But that's what I
Yeah.
have. What is there anything that else that you had that you like?
I don't think so. I have on my other computer here all my notes. Just kind of made like some bullet points on some of that. But yeah, I think all that sounds really good.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just like start talking. And like I said, I'm gonna attach an intro to this. And so
Okay.
we'll like dive into it. So
Yeah.
this is I'll get like better with the flow there here, I think, as we get
No,
going.
you're good.
But
I was listening to a podcast while I got ready just to like get in it. And then of course the one I picked, she was just talking herself versus like with someone. And I'm like, wrong one, but now I'm suckered into this podcast because
Right.
it's so good. Um,
I've been
yeah,
noticing it from a podcast standpoint, and, like, let's just dive in right there.
yeah,
What podcast are you loving? Like, as a business owner, like you said, you're preparing for a podcast today. How do you
yes.
prepare? Like, what are you loving to listen to? Like, do you like listening to work stuff?
I do. It's been hit and miss, kind of depending on what I need. And actually, just this morning, I was listening to one. Her name is Brooke Jean. She's actually local right here. Brett went to high school with her, but she's a therapist, a counselor, and it's Mommy's Mental Health Matters, and she's all about unperfected
Uh,
and like unperfecting what this vision that you've put in your head that life looks like. Like you see everything on social media and everything looks great and grand because nobody's showing you
the
the behind the scenes and the rough times.
mhm,
And she breaks it down and she is real. So like this morning I was listening to her podcast and it was all about energy. So if you're having this negative energy and this victim mentality, that's what you're going to attract
right.
versus having positive energy and putting love out there. So that podcast was really great that I started listening to. I haven't finished it yet, but I will. So she's one
What's
I listen to from like the mental, like mindset standpoint.
okay, okay. What's her,
But
like,
then
profession? Like, professionally, what is her, like, job?
she's a therapist.
Okay. That's so
Yeah.
cool. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you okay, this is the trend I'm seeing. So I loved hearing that because as digital marketers and constantly coming up with strategies, I was just having a conversation with a friend last night about this. I'm like, I look at podcast as almost the new blog posts that we used to put out. It's like these are my thoughts about energy. And even though I'm not trying to sell you my service, giving you this information is so valuable that you can like listen to it, which is easier than reading. But is there
Yeah.
anyone else that you think that's doing a really good job at like promoting their brand with podcasts?
I would say Mel Robbins is a more popular one that maybe people might know.
Mhm.
And I like her approach too, just because she's very real. Like she's not always done up when she's putting things on social media and her podcast. She tells it like it is in the hard times. And, there was one actually I sent to Brett and he was listening to it as well, which is another thing that I really love about podcasts is it's easy to share with people
Yeah.
and help them like maybe gain an understanding because they can say it in a way that maybe I can't put it into words.
Mhm.
Um, but just how really real it was, and even, like, how hard times were, like, you look at Mel Robbins and you're like, "Oh, like, she's got this amazing house that she'll show on like, social media in her yard," and it's like, "How do I get that?" And everything's easy for her, but if you really listen to her podcast, it hasn't been easy, and there are hard times, and so I like the people that are, like, real and tell you like it is and not sugarcoat it.
Right. Okay. On that note, I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with is either they don't share because I don't think necessarily think that they don't want to share behind the scenes, but they're overthinking it, right? Like a
Yep.
lot of times, and I listen, preaching to the choir here. I'm always like, oh,
I'm guilty
who
too.
who cares if your like hairs on top of your head? Listen, I
Right?
stopped by a friend's house last week, like during the weekday, I went and like grabbed a coffee and his dad was there and his dad like was like, who was that? And it was because I was just like a mess that day, and which I love days like that, but I don't share that on
Yeah.
social media. I'm like, absolutely not. So I think that is a common fear that even people who preach it have. Do you have any tips or thoughts of kind of like moving past that and showing like more authenticity?
Yeah, I mean, I know I need to do a better job of it, about the struggle of balancing business mom life. Like, yeah, I'm not recording my stories or anything on days where I've thrown a hat on and I'm running around in my yoga pants to like get to the office. And especially like our reporting days, like we're just head down grinding and you don't see visuals of us,
Mhm,
on those days. Like we're not sharing that. We're not maybe sharing the stresses and the fears and the behind the scenes
mhm,
of what it's really like to be a business owner. And so
right,
there's like this misconception of, well, she's got it all and she's making all this money and her life is great when you don't see when I'm up, till 2 in the morning trying to meet a client's needs,
Right.
or the tears over the stress is, you're trying to go to bed or in the morning, or like you just all of it.
Right. Do you think that that should be shown, or do you think that, cuz I like live in this in between where like same thing, right? Like there's nights where I know you're working on a website like try because we get emails from each other right in the middle
Yeah.
of the night like
Yeah.
what you doing up? And
Yeah.
I go back and forth between like wanting to share that, but for me, when I was asking myself that, I think I was like, the only reason I would share this is so that I can wear a badge of honor. And like, that's not like what I'm trying to do. So then I don't share, right? But do you think
Right.
that there is a benefit to sharing those things if you're a small business owner? Because chances are your clients are following you because that's probably how they started working with you.
Yes. I probably way overthink this. I way overthink everything. It's a good and a bad, trait. But I'll sit there and be like, am I posting it because the badge of honor? Am I posting it
Mhm.
to show like I can grind and I'm going to get this done for you? Or are they going to think, if a prospect is watching and like teetering of like
Ugh,
reaching out, are they going to think she's got too much on her plate? She's not going to give me
yep.
quality time and product and service because she's too overloaded. Or are they going to think, wow, she really cares about her clients? I want to work with somebody like that. So I've played it in my head a thousand different ways.
Right.
And sometimes I'll post just like a picture, but I don't necessarily talk about what I'm
Mhm.
doing, and maybe I'll post it at 10:30 at night when I'm really still sitting here at 2:30 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I think it all comes down to who is your ICA, and we talk about that a lot.
Yep.
Is who's your ideal client? Is it someone that wants you to grind and has that work ethic, or is it somebody that focuses more on work-life balance?
Mhm.
And so it kind of depends on what you're trying to attract.
Well,
But
even just going to the energy thing that you started talking about with that podcast, I think it's just coming up with a decision that like, oh yeah, my ideal client loves that I grind hard at 2:30 in the morning every once in a while and they're into what my coffee order is. And like if I had fun with that and I, make this narrative that my perfect client loves that, I think that you'd do probably then attract that client. And the ones that aren't that perfect client weren't supposed to be yours anyways. And
yep,
I was, in the last podcast I just recorded, we were talking about like just that energy and like what you're putting out there and like that's what you will get back and trust the process. And you've been doing this for what? How like what is it? 2 years now? Like full time?
um, full time, it will have been
Is it
over 3 years.
3
Yeah,
2020?
2020.
Okay, tell me
March
that
20, well, actually January 2020.
this is my New
Great time
Year's
to launch
goal.
a business,
Oh, my
to
New
leave
Year's
healthcare, and, I'm gonna help small businesses, and, ha, joke's on me 3 months later. No.
right. My 2020 January, like one of my big things on my vision board was I wanted to be a motivational speaker. Like to who on Zoom. But
Yeah.
now I look back on that and I'm like, oh, I didn't want to like that's not what I wanted to do. But if 2020 wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't have like had that roadblock and all of those things. So I think, are
Yeah.
you noticing now, 3.5 years in, finally some of the when you're first starting out you're doing all of the things and everyone's telling you it takes time and consistency, do you finally feel like that stuff's coming to fruition?
I do. Like and Brett and I talk about this a lot because he's a small business owner as well. And he's like, there's something magical about the 3-year mark that just happens. And so, I mean, there was a lot of things that I probably should have done differently from the beginning, or I should have said no to things. But I was like, oh, well, I can take that project on. Like I can learn that. I'll do that for them because I wanted the business.
Hmm.
And yes, I created great relationships from it, but I'm like, I am never doing that again. Like Shopify sites, no. Like no.
Right,
And so
right, right.
so I said yes to a lot of things and learned a lot of lessons, but yeah, being consistent and Like, I've organically grown my following. I haven't paid for followers. A lot of people do that. You can tell the ones that do because
Mhm.
you can look at their followers versus engagement. And that's a whole podcast for a whole nother day. But
Right.
um, so it was kind of like low and slow, like the tortoise and the hare, like, slow. And if I would have completely jumped into it and sold myself in different ways, I would have failed. Like,
Mhm.
I would have taken on too much too soon that I wouldn't have survived.
Mhm.
So kind of starting during COVID was a blessing because it did keep things a little bit slower for me so I could balance being a mom
Mhm.
and being a business owner. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a good time. Let me tell you.
Oh my, okay. We'll get into how you got into your business because, I want to touch on what you did before this, but the
Yeah.
low and slow method, I also attest to that. I also think too, like, it's just such a testament to like no one is really an overnight success. Like, even these people who you see
No.
going viral, it's like, if you really dig into what they're doing and how long they've been working at this, it was one video that might have went viral that like made you notice them, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen overnight. Okay, so going into, starting in 2020, take us through like how you got here, like what you were doing before. Obviously, you just mentioned that you were working in healthcare. I
Yeah.
love a good career change story. Like, I think it's so liberating because not a lot of people have the balls to do it because they're so
No.
scared. And the older that I get, I understand why it's scary. Like, you get into a
Yeah.
routine. So how did we get to digital marketing here?
It was, I mean, kind of a long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. So I was working in healthcare. I was doing ultrasound. I had busted my butt to get into a really great school, which is what ultimately brought me to Colorado. And so I went to University of Colorado Hospital in an ultrasound program, and um, and so I had worked really hard at it, and I got into it, and I'm like, I don't love it, but it's great money. Like, I work with great people. And the longer I did it, the more I physically hurt. So I had torn my rotator cuff prior to it. And you people don't think about ultrasound, but you're like this all day. Like, your arm is up, you're reaching, you're pushing. So I was spending more money on chiropractic care and massage therapy than I should had. So I was in a lot of physical pain. We were at a time where Brett was traveling for work. So he was gone 3 weeks a month, and we had a newborn. And I was dropping Bo off at daycare at 6 a.m. and I was picking him back up at 6:30 p.m.
Oh,
And so I maybe got an hour with him, put him to bed, and got up and did it again the next day. And we're like, what type of quality of life is this? Um, and then Brett got off the road, started his own business. I was like, let me take a stab at your website because small businesses starting up, they don't have big budgets. And so I'm like, let me take a stab. I'm going to save us, 15 grand or whatever, the quotes we were getting. And he's like, well, I don't really need one. And I'm like, well, let me just do it. So I did, and people started talking, and they're like, who built your website and where did this come from? And so then I was like, I scaled back ultrasound part-time, and I took on a client, and that was going well. And actually, they are still a client today. So I probably started with them in 2018.
wait, okay. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna make a note on this because I need to ask a
Yeah.
question. Keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, it was before then. I think I started with them almost 2016, 2017. And so I was doing it for Brett's business. I was doing it for this client. And Brett's like, there's something to this. And the kids would be sick, and I would be working an hour away from home, like one way. They were sick. He had to cancel his client appointments. And I'm working in healthcare, and I can't be with my sick kid. And I'm like, this is not what I envisioned when I wanted to be a mom. Like, I want to
Mhm.
be there for my kids. So Brett's like, you can do this. Let's start you a business, and you'll have the flexibility to clear your day and be with our kids when you want to volunteer, to like, I had missed so many things at daycare that was like, families come
Oh,
in and like have Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I can't, I have a full patient load. Um, And so January of 2020, we're like, okay, let's do this. Like I had 3 clients already, and I'm like, and I had a great supportive husband that also was one of those of, well, if I don't get clients, we can scale back childcare. So one way or the other, financially, this will make sense for us. And ultimately, the business was supposed to be part-time. I was supposed to work part-time and be with the kids part-time so I could have that work-life balance and be with my kids. And Brett always says, like, you're a victim of your own success. It organically grew, and I didn't want to say no. I'm a people pleaser. Yeah, I'll take you on. Yeah, I'll take you, which is where the late nights came in. With my kids during the day, they'd go down for a nap. I'd crank away really fast.
Mhm.
They'd get back up. We'd have dinner as a family. I put them to bed. I was back at the computer. Um, and then we're like, okay, we need full-time childcare. Like I am so burnt out.
Right.
Uh, and so yeah, I mean, so since 2020, like even though it was COVID times, like people needed marketing more than ever.
Mhm.
And restaurants were having a hard time. And I picked up a restaurant client during that time, and they're still a client today.
Mhm.
So it's been one of those like I brought clients on and we've formed this amazing relationship, which we can talk more on later. But and it's not about like it was never about the dollars. It was about for me filling my cup of supporting these small businesses during hard times. So
Mhm. Ugh.
but yeah, I mean it was a big transition to go from healthcare to the marketing world.
Oh, for sure. What I love about that though is like you had a passion for something and it kind of filled probably like this creative juice that you had like were craving just cuz like designing it. But what made you just like think they're like I could do this? Like what was it about creating a website that kind of had you dive in there?
So when I got my degree at Kansas State, I got a minor in business. And my marketing class that I took was my absolute favorite class. That and I loved stats, which you know me, I love my
Yep.
analytical numbers when it comes
Yep.
to marketing. And those are the two things I loved. And then if you think about it, ultrasound is very visual. It's all shades of gray, and it's very subtle shades of gray. Could be where you find a disease or a cancer in that little subtleness. So attention to detail was big for me.
Mhm.
But I had before I took on Brett's, I actually had a client that I was working with because I wanted to be able to make some money from home. And so I picked up this virtual assistant job
Oh,
and I helped her for everything. Like, and part of it was her website. And she's like, do you know how to work on a website? And I was one of those, I'm not going to tell people no. I'm like,
y'all figure it
yeah, I can
out.
figure it out. And so, thank goodness for YouTube. And so I'm on YouTube and I'm learning. And that's when I told her, I'm like, I think I can do this because I've been dabbling. I hadn't done one from start to finish.
Mhm.
I was just tweaking hers. Like, yeah, I could do that. And
That's so
so
cool.
it kind of, organically happened from virtual assistant. I mean, I did everything too. I was helping her with accounting and books and just organization and filing and,
Uh-huh.
just those different things. So
Right. Oh my gosh, that's
it's a
so
weird
cool.
path.
It is, but it all makes sense and it like all
Yeah.
leads to where you are now. And then for those of you listening, I'll put Lisa's information all in the show notes, but she has like a full scale digital marketing business. And I don't know if you want to do a little plug here, Lisa, for your business and kind of share with them all of the services that you offer. But yes, she did start with
Yeah.
virtual assistant, website design, and now it's scaled to everything that she's going to say.
Yeah, so we came up with the name. It was a long process, but we are Blendworks Digital Marketing. So we are BWDM, and my husband is BWM, and so we were trying to kind of tie and keep it in there. And two, if you don't know, my husband and all of our boys, their name starts with a B, so it only made sense for our business name to start with a B. But ultimately, Blendworks is blending different forms of digital marketing together. You can do one or you can do many. Kind of the more you do and the more aggressive you are, the faster you can kind of climb that Google ladder. And so we focus mostly organically on getting businesses to the top of a Google search. So that is from all different ways. It may be from website design and SEO. It could be social media. We have software for review management. So to text out, email out, asking for reviews, fix your online listings. We've introduced branding photography, which we can talk about why that's so important later. We dabble a little bit in paid ads, but honestly, organic is our key goal to get to
Mhm.
the top. We do blogs. What else am I missing? Website maintenance,
Email marketing.
email marketing,
And I love that
just
you
all the things.
right. And it all does blend together. I always have loved how
Yes.
your name and just the meaning of it. And I think that's what it means to just like walk authentically and like make strong decisions as you're building your business, and like what you're saying yes to is like anyone can build a business that feels cohesive like that if you're doing all of the little things right and making
Yes.
all those right decisions. Let's talk about just like the philosophy of why organic. I think in this day and age, and when people think about marketing their business, they instantly think of social media. And
Yes.
that's great. But I personally think like, it's a pay to play place. Like the more you pay, the more eyes you can get on your page. And so, what
Yep.
I've always loved about your branding philosophy and your marketing philosophy is that organic piece, which comes
Yep.
through not really social media, it comes through Google and someone's website. Why do you
Yep.
love that? And like, what's your philosophy around that?
So part of all of this comes back to my original why. And I always try to keep that in mind when I'm maybe adding something or taking something away. Which actually made me think of another service that we just started. But originally it started because I wanted to be a one-stop shop. So I would talk to local small business owners and like, well, I have this web person. I don't know who does the hosting. They designed it. It hasn't been touched. I don't know how to access it. And then I also have somebody over here doing my social media. And they were just kind of all over the place and nothing was cohesive and nothing was talking to each other and none of it made sense. So I wanted to be a one-stop shop for everybody to come, just have one point of contact and not have three or four different marketing people
Mhm.
doing their digital footprint. Um, but for me, organic is so important because my ideal clients aren't ones that can shell out 10, 12, 15 grand in paid ads.
Right.
Um, and I also feel like paid versus organic, you're kind of renting the space when you're paying for it. Like you're renting it, you stop paying those ads, you're not going to be seen.
Hmm.
Organic, it's more of an investment and it may be a slower pace, but now you own that position at the top, and then it's easier to maintain once you get to the top versus paid ads. You stop those ads, your position is gone,
Hmm.
your money is gone. So organics kind of, again, is slower. It's a more achievable, like lower budgets. It works for, and then you own it. So it's the long-term game for them, which for small businesses, that's what they need.
Uh, exactly. And I think I know what service you were going to dive in and talking to. So when it comes to really like scaling back to your why and wanting to
Hmm.
work with those businesses that have like a smaller budget, talk to me about that. What made you settle on like, this is my perfect client? Like when you were building that client avatar, what was the inspiration behind that?
So, and it's funny, my ideal client has changed multiple times, and you know that from when
Yeah.
we started
Yeah.
working together. But part of it is I want to be relatable and I want to be real. And, when I started, I made a bunch of mistakes along the way, all the way from my logo design and how it's applied. And we may even revamp the logo because I can't print it on things because the font's so small. So I learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way because I am in these small business owners' shoes, or I'm also in these stay-at-home mom shoes that are like, I need something more to fulfill me, but I don't know where to go, how to get started. I don't know the process. So within the past 6 months, we have launched. It's called the Business Kickstart Kit, and there's different package deals, but the service lumps so many things together. And basically, we're your guide. And so, if you need a logo, great, we're going to help you design that logo. We're going to teach you the tips and tricks that we should have done differently
Hmm.
along the way, to maybe speed that process up for someone so they can avoid the mistakes. And there's still going to be mistakes. Nothing's perfect, but
Right.
we can help guide them. So the Kickstart Kit does everything. So logo design, branding, photography, you get a website with it, you get social media coaching. So there's a lot of education behind it too.
Mhm.
Um, which in 2024 we hope to bring back our training workshops. And so yeah, this business Kickstart Kit is changed because the ideal client has changed. And I want to work with people that are like me. We talk about like where you find your clients and your and things. And I had this vision of, oh, my client is male and they already have an established business and they're going to trust me to do their work. And I just wasn't feeling as connected to some of those clients. Don't get me wrong, I have some male clients I love to work with. Um, but it changed. It's like I want someone that's gonna care, that's gonna want to grind a little bit,
Mhm.
and build their business kind of from the ground up
Right.
and be their support system.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And I can't wait to watch all the people that start joining the Kickstart Kit, because just like, the branding, photography, the website, putting the social media together, like those are all really pivotal things that have to happen in someone's business that can be very overwhelming to start. I even think back to my journey, and there would be weeks that went by where I just could not make a decision on a logo. And like if I would have had someone to help me with those things, one, it would have went by a lot faster, but, I would have
Yeah.
avoided some changes along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And that's where I want to be a sounding board for these business owners. So it's not a here, this is what I deliver, here's your monthly report. Enjoy. If they have a question, I want them to come to me. I want them to text me. I want them to call me, like troubleshoot ideas back and forth.
Mhm.
Because I've been there and I've made a lot of mistakes and I'll still continue to make mistakes. But I've kind of weeded some of those initial things out.
Right.
But and just to have somebody to sound ideas off of goes a long ways. Like you and I have jumped on so many conversations or voice memos like, hey, what are your thoughts on this?
What's working for you? What's not? Oh, you're
Yes.
feeling that way too. Okay, on that note, I want to talk a little bit about, you do have a team behind you that like kind of
Yep.
helps you, I mean, outside of your family too. But for
Yes.
those who are smaller business owners that maybe just have themselves and a few other people, one, how do you find the motivation and just
Yeah.
keeping everything together? Because you're also a mom and your husband's a business owner too. So how do you
Yep.
organize all this? And how did you get started? Like you're not, like when you started your business, you had two kids,
Yep.
husband, full-time jobs. There was no
Yep.
excuses. You're still here. So how did this
Yeah.
happen?
Part of it is like failure is just not an option for me. Some of it's the mindset. So, and Brett and I were talking about this recently. One of the things for me is I need to plan ahead. Like I need to feel prepared. I need to think like what's coming and how do I prepare so things go smoother. So on Sundays, we meal prep. And I literally print out a menu and this is what we're eating what days. But I look at the calendar, I'm like, oh, we have soccer this night. So either I need a crock pot meal or I need this or that. So planning ahead has been essential for our
Mhm.
family. You introduced me to Trello, which has been a game changer.
Oh, I love it.
Which
So satisfying.
yeah. Yeah. So if you guys don't have Trello, get on Trello right
Not a
away.
sponsored ad. We really love Trello. So
Yes, yes. It's like, mobile sticky notes. And so I'll be laying in bed and I'll throw it on my Trello board to do in the morning so I don't forget. We have shared calendars, and then Brett and I also use an app called Cozy. And so we can put grocery list on there. We can put like our weekend to do or just anything. And we share the app so we can see it. We can check mark it off. So if he's going to the store, he can look at it and be like, oh, we need this. Like this is great and helpful.
what?
So we love
Cozy?
Cozy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love a
Yeah.
good app suggestion. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we use Cozy. It's a lot of conversation back and forth. Like we have a village of people behind us helping, after school care for kids and in-home daycare. But you got to be flexible. You got to learn to juggle. Like today, Brett and I are sharing a sick kid responsibility. So trying to make it all happen. But it's
Right.
it's a lot. Yeah. So I mean, it's a supportive spouse for me. All my family's in Kansas, so I don't have them here to help. It's friendships and relationships with my kids' friends' parents to help.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're catching rides to soccer games and I'm meeting there because I'm running late from a client meeting. So just having all of those things and knowing where to outsource,
Mhm.
like where are the priorities, outsource where you can to keep your head on straight.
Right. Okay. That's something that I've always really admired about you. And I know that you've noticed this, but I think, and I'm not trying to be like hard on females. Obviously, we're women,
Yeah.
but I see a lot of women and women business owners who use their kids as the excuse or their busyness as the excuse and wearing that busy badge of honor. And it makes it not look appealing. And like the older that I get, I'm like, like this looks awful. But you're someone who you don't use your kids as an excuse. You wouldn't know that you had 3 kids, a husband with a full-time, like full-on financial advising business. You guys are doing every sport. Like you're some of the busiest people that I know, but you don't put off that vibe that I see a lot of other people do. Is that intentional or like I like you know what I'm talking about. Like you see it
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. No, it's like for me, you see a lot of like you need to keep up with the Joneses, and there's a lot of moms in our community that are stay-at-home moms, and I've had to learn I can't compare myself to them because I'm not them. Like I can't be at the school planning all these holiday parties, and it's not easy. I actually this weekend, my son goes, all I want for Christmas is for you to be a parrot at school so you're there more often. And I'm
Oh,
like, ugh, don't say that to me.
right.
But I'm there when I can't. Like, so I volunteer at least once a month at the school to make that a priority, but I've learned to say no. So like I had to say no to meeting a whole bunch of moms to go meet for coffee to plan the Halloween party. Instead, I chose to take my time and I was at the Halloween party versus spending time with the moms to
Mhm.
plan it. Now, I would have loved to have been there and build those relationships, closer with those moms. But so I've had to learn to say no. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of behind the scenes that people don't realize. And I do need to do better with work-life balance. But yeah, I mean, it's the juggling act. Like tonight, I do have to skip out on going. My son gets to skate on intermission of the Avs game tonight. And I would love to be there, but we have a sick one so him and I are staying home.
Right.
So we do what we can. We get pictures, videos. I talk to him when he gets home about it,
Mhm.
and just his experience. But yeah, it's kind of all, adjusting priorities and they change even every year as the kids age change and their needs change. We have to pivot and adjust
Right.
on
Well,
those priorities.
what I hear you saying too is like you have to be careful what you're saying yes to and no to, but also like
Hmm.
walking in confidence in that. Like you could have
Yep.
sat there and like, not been able to go to coffee with the other moms and
Yep.
been all woe is me, but instead you're like, this is why I'm making the decision. You're very clear on why it is you made that choice. And so I think
Yep.
walking in that confidence probably helps that whole process, and then I think it opens up those other opportunities too.
Yeah, it's kind of always remembering like what is my why? And my why behind this business was so I could have flexibility to be a mom was a big part of it of
Mhm.
why I left healthcare. And so when I was like, okay, do I go spend coffee with the moms? And I heard they were there for 4 hours and I'm like, how do you take 4 hours out of a
Well, and
day?
also,
Like,
do you know what else I would do with 4 hours?
right? Yeah, and so I'm like, well, I would have loved that,
Right.
and had that time and that, like, time just to go be a mom and, like, connect with
Enjoy it,
others.
yeah.
Yeah, but my why is so I can be there with the kids, and so I saved those 4 hours. I was in the office so I could be there on the day of Halloween at the Halloween party
Mhm.
with my son, see the joy on his face, because he wasn't gonna be at that coffee to see me spending that time,
Right.
and I messaged with the moms, like, "What can I do? What can I bring? I still wanna, be helpful in
Right.
this."
Well, and I think
But my why is to be with my son.
right. And I think that's also true, like, going back to that whole being very positive in your why. you know, you could have sat back and not continued that relationship with the moms, but instead you're like, I can't be there, but that doesn't mean I'm going to like sit here and feel sorry for myself. I'm still
Yeah.
going to reach out and build that relationship the way that I can. And I think that's where sometimes like fortune favors the bold in those ways. And
Yeah.
I know you and obviously your community, and you know, that's how I have seen you get a lot of your clients is by forging those connections and showing up in those ways. And so
Yep.
those of you listening who don't know Lisa, she lives in a community just north of Denver. Like, can I say where it's at?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Northwest
I'm
of
not gonna
Denver.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not gonna say like your address or anything, but she's in
No.
Arvada,
Yeah.
Colorado, which is like the
Yep.
cutest little town. And I wanted to do a shout out to Michael at Three Sons. If you guys go to
Yes.
Arvada, Colorado, you have to go eat at this Italian restaurant. It is so good. I literally could eat anything on the menu. But anyways, Lisa and I worked on a project together and we like got to eat there and
Yeah.
we love
Yeah.
Michael. But he was like one of your
Actually, so
first.
like, yeah, he was one of my first clients during COVID. It's funny you bring him up. So Monday was my birthday, and
Did you
so we
guys
were
go
gonna go
there?
eat. Well, we would have, but we had sick kids. So Brett went and picked it up actually. And because we have this relationship with the clients, he comped my meal for my birthday. And he had texted me the day before and he texted me the day after and just checked in, said, "How was your meal? Happy birthday. Sorry the kids aren't well." And so like for me, my clients aren't clients, they become family, and it's these relationships that we form with them. Um and they're like just the sweetest people. And so, and it's just funny how this has became full circle. So actually, I was thinking the other day, my 30th birthday, Brett surprised me, did a surprise dinner, and it happened to be at Three Sons. And they
Ah,
weren't a client. We didn't know Michael at the time. It was just, he knows I love Italian food and it was a local place. And yeah, he surprised me with a dinner
ah,
there. And then we also, it just happened to be the place that we went to the night that I had told Brett I was pregnant for the first time with our oldest. And so Three Sons became like this special place.
right. And you
And
have
then
three
this just,
sons.
and now we have Three Sons. But he didn't become a client until well after that. And some of it was like, we love that restaurant, but he was actually a client of Brett's first. And then I was sitting in Brett's office doing some marketing work one day, and he's like, "Well, tell me what you do." And he goes, "Well, I need help with that." And here it is all these years later, and we have a close relationship with the family. And, you know, we truly care about each other. It's
Hmm.
not just about, I'm going to send you an invoice and this is the product I'm going to deliver you each month.
Hmm.
And I always love it. He's always texting me, "Hey," he's like, "give me a call when you can." And we get on a call at least once a week and talk about what are the specials, what are the next approach.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, my clients do become family. We do care about each other on a personal level.
Okay, so for anybody that has a business where they have to acquire clients, what are your tips for finding clients?
I would say, just from personal experience for me, and for those of you that don't know too, I come from a very small town in Kansas. We're talking 600 people, getting pulled over by the sheriff and saying, "Oh, who's your dad?" And then they go into the local bank and say, "I pulled your daughter over." So, I mean, we're talking small town. So for me, it was all about relationships, and my ideal client is someone who doesn't have to be like me, but similar to me. And we talk a lot about market where you are. And so my clients have came from forming connections on the sidelines at my kids' games. So one of the ladies I'm working with now, we got to talking on the sidelines of our kids' flag football. And we're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And formed a connection. And she's a client and a friend now. And so it's one of those market where you are. Brett has an ad up in the hockey rink and our boys are playing hockey right now. And it just sparks a conversation with
Hmm.
people without being salesy. And it's building that rapport, relationship, knowing that you care. And one thing that's been really big for me is getting involved in the local chamber here in
Hmm.
Arvada. Like they've been great and supportive. We've done some networking events. I'm in a networking group with them and have just formed relationships with people. And some of them aren't my clients, but they may have referred clients to me. And it all stems back to that relationship building.
Right. Oh, I love that. Um, I always like hearing everyone's strategy. Do you have a strategy for your business that you are promoting right now, or maybe putting together right now, in the sense of maybe it's promoting the Kickstart kit? Like, what is something that you guys are doing right now that's kind of like your little push that you have going on?
So the Kickstart kit is big, and it's probably going to be a little more of a kick with New Year's resolutions coming up. So people have been sitting on these thoughts, these ideas, and like we want to be there and help support that. Kind of be bold, take that scary leap. So the Kickstart kit will be something, and then we're also part of legislation and different things we've been learning about. So having accessible websites for you think of like ADA, and a restaurant needs to have handicap accessible bathrooms. Well, websites need to be accessible to people with disabilities, with seizures, with ADHD, with blindness. And so that's a strategy we're going to start working on right now. So we've been drafting a newsletter to go out. We've got some blogs on it, just built an additional page on it for a website around it. But trying to build, and that goes back to brand reputation too. Like I want to have this reputation where anybody can access my
Mhm.
website and I can work with anybody, but it's also following the legislation that's coming out as well. So,
I'm
but
so
those are two of our bigger things.
right. Okay, that's so exciting. I like just to hear what everyone has their eye on right now. Okay, with that in mind, the holidays are coming up.
Yes.
I have already been receiving Black Friday emails, and we're 2 weeks, like last
Yep.
week. So we're 2 weeks in front of Black Friday. And I don't know what your opinion is on Black Friday deals and promotions, but do you have any thoughts on holiday promos and pushing out your product or your business right now?
So I get torn with this, with mine in particular, because, and you and I have talked about this going into the holidays. Do I really want to push a sale and bring in a lot more? Like, is that fitting for my why to be with my kids during the holidays?
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, I have a hard time doing it because mine's more of a service-based industry.
Mm-hmm.
For product-based industry, I say do it. Capitalize on the Black Friday deals, get in early before people have spent their budgets,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of get in. I feel like too, there's a big push this year to get things done in advance so you can enjoy the holidays, so it's not as stressful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's one of those you're almost too late to be getting it out there a little bit for some
Mm-hmm.
businesses, because we really plan a good like 6 months in advance
Right.
for some of these things. So I would say if you feel behind on the Black Friday deal, New Year's is coming up, Super Bowl Sunday's coming up. Those can be like a lot of big marketing trends for
Mm-hmm.
people. But yeah, I mean, I think like e-commerce businesses, Black Friday and this time of year is a great time to be launching some of those sales and
I love
pieces.
it. I love it. And I also love playing on the whole New Year's thing. But I
Yeah.
love that you had kind of mentioned like keeping in mind, like, one, what type of business you have, but also what is the goal here. It's very easy to say yes to money, but
Yes.
it turns on you just as quick as it comes to you if you're not doing it for the right reasons.
That's right. That is right.
Um,
And becomes more stressful, not
one
enjoyable.
One thing that I wanted to ask you a little bit about, something that I wanted to kind of start to implement into my podcast, is obviously I've been going through my own grief journey. And so I have been obsessed with connecting with other people who also are going through that. And I don't mean that in a morbid way at all. Like, I'm not trying
No,
to have like sad girl energy, but
no.
I feel like those are the people that I am really connecting with, and I feel like they get me and they understand me.
Yeah.
And so I know that you have your own grief journey, and I was wondering if you would be open to sharing that, because I
Yeah.
think that a lot of other people here could relate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I may tear up, but so during COVID times, in between our second and our third son, we were pregnant with a daughter and we miscarried. And part of that thing is, we don't have a daughter. We know we're done having kids. There are no females on my husband's side of the family. Um, and so I go back and forth. Like, I wish maybe I wouldn't have known the gender. But yeah, so we lost, our baby girl. We had taken pictures the night before. We were ready to announce it on social media. Like, we had been holding it in and not sharing. And I have pictures of my boys like sitting on pumpkins and they had their t-shirts on and they were announcing they were going to be big brothers. And that night I woke up at 3 a.m. and I knew I had worked in healthcare. I had scanned so many miscarriages. I knew what was happening. Um,
Oh,
and my experience is very different than a lot of people. Because of COVID times, it made things more difficult at the hospital to get done what I needed to.
mhm,
Um, and so it was a really hard time and grief was hard. Um, and I've learned a lot about it. In a way, I wish I would have known more going
mhm.
into it. I wish I would have been more educated on it. Actually, I have a friend who runs an ultrasound program, and her and I've talked a lot about we wish there was more education when we were in ultrasound of how to emotionally help people that you're seeing that have cancer, that are going through loss, like, because I have a whole different perspective on that now that I've
Uh-huh.
been through it. But everybody's journey is so different. You can't judge someone for how long they've been grieving or the
Mhm,
way that they're grieving. But grief, like, I totally get where you're coming from. It's a lonely feeling and it feels isolating and nobody gets it.
mhm.
And after the first, week or two, everybody's moved on and you're still sitting there
Ugh,
feeling it. And
mhm,
you're like, how can they move on? I'm so sad. I'm so hurt. And with miscarriages, you go through a lot of different feelings and any type of grief you do. And
mhm,
you and I actually had conversations about it. And I was like, you grieve how you need to grieve. If you need to grieve and share it publicly, do that because I have shared on social media around it. I've had close people say, get over it already.
oh,
And you know what I mean? And I'm like, but when I shared it, like Brett and I sat on it and sat on it. And I was like, I feel like I want to share this, on social media, like what happened to us. And he agreed. And the support and the private messages that I got from people to be like, I'm glad you're sharing this. I suffered alone. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I felt ashamed for it. Um, it's a lot to bear as a person.
mhm,
And so I feel like that is the power of social media, whether it's marketing a product or a service or just like who you are to
mhm.
feel connected to people. So well, we have Bishop now. He's turning 2 at the end of this month. And we wouldn't have Bishop if we would have had Bella.
Mhm.
We knew 3 was kind of our max and so like it's been a journey and it still stings every day. And I toy with someday, if I have more time, sharing more about that and educating people around it. Brett's witnessed because I get it a lot. Um, Probably on a weekly basis, I get, oh, you have 3 boys, you need to try for a girl.
Oh, I bet. And people just don't
And
even
it,
think, like, you don't think maybe that I have? Like,
yeah,
don't
you
think
don't
that
think,
hasn't crossed our mind?
yeah. And,
Already
we're
did.
done. Like,
Yeah.
pregnancies are rough on my body. I'm getting too old to have more. 3 is a great number for us.
Three's
And
a good number.
but it's like, one of those you don't think I miss it. Like you don't think I wish I had a daughter. Like you don't
Mhm.
like people just don't think before they speak. And,
Right.
whether it's that or whether it's to a new couple and they're like, "Hey, when are you having kids?" How do you know that they didn't try and have a miscarriage? How do you know that
Mhm.
they're not going through like an IVF journey and emotionally struggling? Like that is a private choice.
Right.
So I just feel like there should be more education awareness around that type of communication with people.
Mhm.
Um, 'Cause you don't know what people are struggling with behind closed doors. And you also shouldn't tell people it's time to get over it because and this came from someone who has been through it, but their journey was very different than mine. And
Mhm.
nobody's journey is the same and
Right.
nobody feels it the same.
Right.
Um, and so like, yeah, it's just I could talk on that all day,
No,
but it's,
no, I everything you're saying, I think just the piece of everyone grieves differently, and it doesn't
Yep.
matter if, someone else lost a mom or a daughter. It's like their relationship with that person is non-replaceable. You can never replicate that. And so that's what
Nope.
makes every grief journey so confusing. And I think too, just your history with that in that situation, that creates a lot of, I don't like to use the word trauma, but you replay it every single day. And I've heard all the things like, God gives his strongest battle, or his biggest battles to his strongest soldier. Like, you've heard all of the little sayings that get you through the day. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many days where you do feel like a victim of it. You're like, how can I keep walking through the day feeling this way? Like, this is awful. And,
Yeah.
some days, like, I'll drink the Kool-Aid and I'm like, mind over matter. What's meant to be is meant to be. Like, I'll drink that Kool-Aid. And then there's
Yeah.
other days where it's like, I can't put up a fight today. Like, it's just, this is how I feel. But I
Yeah.
also think so when you had lost Bella, was that in 2019 or 2018?
It was 2020. It was October
Okay.
of 2020.
So did that, like when that happened, did that play any role into like a pivotal piece of your business? Like looking back kind of on this like timeline of all the boys and Bella and your business, what happened after that situation?
I mean, it brought me back to my why and like let me reevaluate what I'm doing and why I'm doing it because it is taking me away from the boys that I have. Um and at that time too when I was sharing it and the feedback I was getting from people, part of me questioned, do I need to pivot out of marketing and share more about this and just from the relationships that I've grown, share this piece with people. Um and it's so interesting too how it's so different male versus female and how they experience the loss and
Mhm.
things that are said to a male around it versus a female. And I'm glad that my husband's witnessed things said to me like often. And he goes, nobody would have ever said that to me. I'm like, you're right. Like, this is what I
Mhm.
hear on a daily basis. But yeah, so it kind of made me come back, reflect, um, learn to take a little bit of time because it was, it ultimately it involved a surgery and other pieces to kind of get past some of that and a lot of self-care and a lot of time in my bed and but it re-brought me back to my why. Like I reassessed, kind of pivoted some of my offerings so I could be with my boys.
Mhm. Okay, I love that. It's interesting because so far in like the conversations that I've been having with people about their businesses, it really comes down to like when shit hits the fan or life gets crazy or business is exploding,
Hmm.
really going back to the fundamentals is like where you can always go back to and like then
Yep.
pivot from there. And that's what your why is. That's like knowing what you're offering, like what you want to put out there, and then who you want to attract back and work with. And if you
Yeah.
can, and those things can change. And I think that's one thing that even I've been hard on myself on is, changing service offerings or team dynamics or business
Yep.
dynamics is it's okay to like, you don't owe anybody anything. Like we're all experiencing life for the first time right now. And same thing with
Yep.
business ownership. Like we're all experiencing this for the first time. So it's okay to pivot and change your mind, but be positive in that and make those decisions and then put in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say if you're going to be a business owner too, like you got to embrace change and you got to embrace getting put in uncomfortable positions and doing the hard things because a lot of things haven't been easy. And that's, goes back to what we were talking about earlier of should I share more of the behind the scenes and the
Mhm.
struggles? Because yeah, on the surface, everything looks great, but behind the scenes and behind the doors, in this house, like there's hard times. Like
Mhm.
it's not always easy.
Oh gosh. Well, I think that that is the perfect place to end. I already told you I'm envisioning an episode part 2 in the mountains of Colorado.
Yes.
Snow-covered mountains, a little mimosa to start our day. Y'all, me and Lisa, she's like my partner in crime who ultimately we do similar things. And so you are literally like my 911 dial whenever I'm like, what would you do in this situation? Or what do you think about this? We've even partnered on some projects and I'm going to put some plugs
Yes.
throughout the website. But would you pimp yourself out, let people know where they can find you and your business, and then I'll also drop all of this stuff in the show notes.
Yeah. So our biggest digital platform right now is on our website. So blendworksdigital.com. Our bigger focus, because that's where our ideal clients are, is on Instagram, which is also Blendworks Digital. For our handle, we're also on Facebook. We dabble a little bit in LinkedIn. But those are our biggest platforms. So we try to share a Tuesday tip every week. Just little different marketing strategies and tidbits. So that way, if you're a DIY person, you can do that. And we hope to have some workshops coming soon in 2024 that you don't have to be in Arvada, Colorado to access and to learn a little bit on your own and make a big impact on your digital footprint. So,
I love it. Thank you,
yes.
Lisa. Yay, we
Thank
did
you.
it.
It's been
Oh my
fun.
God, it's so much fun.